My name is Persia Helfenbaum. My maiden name was Friedman. I was born in a small town called Kosuflatsky on the 25th of March, 1927. On the 7th day of the breaking out of the war, the Nazis occupied our little town. When the Nazis came again, they started to do their dirty job. Then they attacked the Jews, and it was a lot of very religious Jews whom they met in the streets. They cut off their beards. Those were the lucky ones. Otherwise, they tore off the beards together with the skin of their faces. They behaved horrific, horrible. The Jews were thrown out of their places. The shops were ransacked, and it was bedlam. It was a totally, totally different behavior from the Russian soldiers in comparison to the Nazis. The electricity was put on, the bakery started to bake bread, and the Jews received their normal, it wasn't rationed at that time yet. Later on it became rationed, but in the beginning it changed from a dark night to light sunshine in comparison. What made me leave my little town was that it was already the beginning of November. I can't remember exactly, but it was Erev Sukkot. Sukkot is a Jewish holiday called the Tabernacles, and in Jewish it is Sukkot. At that time, my mother sent me to the shochet with a goose to be killed for the celebration of the Sukkot. Of course, she tied up the goose's feet and put it in a basket, and I had to cross a bridge, river. It was a small river there in our town. I was only 12 years old, and carrying a basket with the goose, sticking out the head. One of the smarties, one of the Nazis aimed a shot. If he would have liked to kill me, I think he wouldn't have missed. But apparently he must have aimed at the goose. And as he fired the shot, I dropped the basket and I ran back. But at that time, the goose managed to jump out of the basket. And according to the shots, everybody was laughing and shooting at the goose. Most probably they peeled off every feather with the bullets from that goose body. I was very, very scared, really scared. And from that moment on, I never ventured outside. When I heard that they are renting a horse-drawn carriage, I begged my mother to let me go with them. My mother opposed to it because she said I was too young. I wouldn't even be able to wash my hair. At that time I had thick plaits. Now I have 3 hairs, but that doesn't matter. At that time, and she said that I won't be able to manage, and I will be a hindrance to my father. So, as it was a commotion in the house, I opened the door. I left the house. I didn't even notice that I went out. I went a few houses further because I know which way they will be going. And when they were all on that horse-drawn carriage and started to move, when they came to this house, I hopped on the edge in the back of the part of the carriage And I was sitting on this for 16 kilometers, and none of them, not one, turned their head back till they saw me at the border. And at the border, my father wanted to send me back. So my father, my brother, and my cousin said, first my brother, he said to my father, and then the cousins, "Uncle, please don't do it. She is here. Let us stay here." And my father was very worried that my mother wouldn't know where I am. So I don't know where they found a piece of paper. They gave a message back with this driver to tell my mother to give her the little note that I am with them. And I crossed the border with the whole lot onto the Russian side. My mother managed to cross the border 3 times. She brought all my clothing. She also brought me my original birth certificate, and also a document that I finished my 5th primary school grade, so I could be enrolled to a school on the Russian side. We were there for 3 weeks, and those 3 weeks she crossed 3 times the border. And my father said, "Pack up and come home." I said, "Oh, what are you? Of your rocker? For everything that we worked all our lives, we have to give it away or let it be robbed or something like that?" But they took away everything just the same from her. I loved her. I was sick. I was sick, you know, with... I wanted my mom, you know. She was the closest to me. But I always remembered that I could have been shot, you know. And I said, no. And they said, "Oh, she's like a gypsy. She doesn't miss home." And I turned around and I used to cry. But I never gave in. I didn't want to go there. Didn't want to go back. And I survived. My father didn't want to take a passport because he left his wife and the rest of his family, and he wanted to go back home. We thought that the war will last a few weeks and then we can go home, but it wasn't like that. So we had to register that we want to go back home. We were sent to the polar zone, North Pole, to a place near Arkhangelsk called Plessetsk. There were white nights in summer and long, dark nights in winter. And the winter was very severe, and the men had to work in the forest. They were cutting timber. From 1942 to 1945, we lived in Kazakhstan in a town called Oyster Bay. It was a town of about 25,000 people in normal times, but during the war we had 75,000 people there. So the conditions were very, very harsh, very hard, you know, but we never were treated, the Jews especially, were never treated differently than any citizen in Russia. Nobody stood with a gun at our head. Nobody tried to kill us. Nobody tried to mistreat us if they behaved normally. 1942 was the worst year for the Russians during the Second World War. It was hunger. There were I didn't see any men between 18 and 65. The young ones were drafted straight away as they finished school, primary, as ordinary soldiers, and the ones that finished high school, they were trained as officers, and the older ones were in the working army. The kids that we were then we had vacation. They took us away about 100 kilometers from home, and we had to work, do manual work. I personally, my whole class, we were working in rice fields with no protection, and the rice fields the rice is grown in water, and we had, with no protection, with no clothing, we all became ill with malaria from the mosquitoes. But we had to work, and we worked, and we helped till the war ended. We were liberated on the 8th of May, 1945. That was the official liberation. And then it was dancing and hugging and kissing and music and everything. All of the Jews were cleaned out from this little town on Erev Yom Kippur in 1942. My whole family, my mother, my sister-in-law, my sisters who were married, they lived in Warsaw, they came back to Kosovo to be together with my mom, because they created at that time the ghetto in Warsaw, so they managed to get out of it, and I lived with my mom till they were all exterminated Erev Yom Kippur, that means on the eve of Yom Kippur in 1942. It's very important to work here to show the students what hatred, prejudice, and racial intolerance could do to a nation. It can happen to anybody, and it can happen anywhere if we will not be vigilant and we would not speak up straight from the beginning. And I think it's very important for the young people to come and see what they did to us, and never to do it again. And the best thing is to remember that every human being is a member of the human race, regardless of color, of skin, of shape of eyes, or creed. We should treat every human being in a human way.